Coming to you live from the Business RadioX studio in Woodstock, Georgia. This is Fearless Formula with Sharon Klein. Thank you for joining us on Fearless Formula on Business Radio X. We talk about the ups and downs of the business world and offer words of wisdom for business success. I'm your host, Sharon Klein. And today in the studio, we have an author who also has a degree in art. She combines her love of art and storytelling and has won numerous awards for her work. And just now today has the second book in a series published today. So I'm very excited to have Diana Sharples on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
I'm excited to talk to you about these books because they have motorcycles in them. It makes me so happy. And it's interesting, too, because I met you this past weekend at International Female Writers Day. There was an event in Canton, and you had a booth set up, which was so smart to find a writing day to focus on some writing books.
It was very serendipitous. I had walked into the store the day before, and I had a motive. I was looking at motocross clothes because I'm going to a conference at the end of the month, and I'm thinking, they have a costume thing going on.
They do.
So I'm looking into clothing and all that. And they mentioned that they were having this thing, and I went, can I set up? And the manager said yes. And so I just came. So one day notice.
I mean, that is
and it
kind
was
of
great.
amazing. Yeah.
It was so much fun. You guys, you made it fun. That whole group of women that were there.
We do awesome. We do have a really wonderful group of writers, and it's not a motorcycle club. It's just a collective of women called the Litas right. Atlanta. And we've been really lucky to have just some of the best people join and kind of go through life a little bit together. Once a month, we have a ride, and then we have a bike night.
If I still had my Harley, I'd be with you. I promise you that.
Well, we were talking about that a little bit on Saturday. You know, how important it is when you really have an opportunity to ride that you take it. It's easy for life to get in the way.
Yes.
And I know that
weather.
And weather. And it did rain on Saturday too. But you were talking about how you have like a physical limitation right now and how much you miss riding. And it actually is important for me to keep in mind that when I'm healthy, I need to take advantage of when I can ride.
Yes.
So I get that completely. But how cool is it that you were able to come and kind of highlight a genre of book that is very interestingly not considered publishable or advantageous to publish? How do you want to phrase this? I'm not sure how we want to talk about it.
The publishing industry has its tropes. And especially with romantic suspense and any sort of romance novels, but with romantic suspense, they have what I call heroes. And those are male characters, sometimes female, that just by the sake of their occupation, you go, oh, that's a hero. And this is like police officers or military or cowboys or Coast Guard or canine units or whatever, whatever happens to be trending at that particular time. And they seem reluctant to get away from that because it sells. And it makes sense that they would do that. If it sells, then why break it, So coming at it with my hero being a professional motocross rider, okay.
It's just thrown them off a bit?
It throws them off a bit. And so I had to self-publish because I could not get an agent to even look at my work. And I had an editor a year ago when I was working on the first book tell me it would never be published.
Really? Because
of the motocross. And I'm like, y'all don't see what I see. When every weekend I see stadiums, football stadiums, professional football stadiums filled with motocross fans watching a supercross race. There are readers in that group.
There are, and I love that you focus a lot on women too, because the demographic of women writers grows every year.
Yes.
Which is amazing. I love hearing that. It's not so much the, grizzled sort of biker guy with the long beard. Right. It's a lot of different people.
Yeah. I started writing when I was in my early 20s, and I had my silly little 185 Suzuki.
It's It's a legit bike if you're getting started.
It was a street bike. It was, it was not even a dirt bike or anything. It was a street bike. It was legal. It had headlights and turn signals and an electric start, for pity's sake.
Wow, you didn't even have to do the...
Didn't even have to kickstart it.
Wow.
So, I got that in my early 20s, and then it was very unusual for a woman to be riding.
What was it that made you want to ride then?
I was with a guy who rode, and I really enjoyed it. Of course, I always rode on the back with him, and I went, I want to do this. It felt freeing. It felt like I was in control more than sitting in a car. So I started off with that little bitty bike and went for a long time.
What other bikes have you had since then?
I had a 350 Honda.
Nice.
And then I quit for a while. I had a scary accident.
Oh.
And didn't get badly hurt, but it was scary. And so I kind of lost my nerve for a little while. And this is a very funny story. I was writing my first book, Running Lean, in which the character rides an old Yamaha 250. It's an enduro bike. And he had restored it and all this kind of stuff. And so I always went to the bike shop here up in Canton to ask stupid questions. Because I know how to ride, but I didn't know how to fix a carburetor or something, And so that was at the time when the gas prices were $4 a gallon.
Oh, wow.
And my husband had many miles to travel to go to work. And he's a computer programmer, or he was. He's retired now. But and he was like looking at all these bikes going, I'm thinking about getting a scooter. He saw that tag that said 100 miles to the gallon. And I went, honey, do you really want to perpetuate your geek image? I said, if you're going to ride, get a real bike.
Did he get a Harley then?
He didn't get a Harley then.
What did he get?
We started off slow. We went to this place that has used bikes. And he got a Suzuki. And he said, and you can ride on the back and be my motorcycle mama. And I went, no way, Jose. Once you've had your hand on the throttle, you can't sit in the back anymore.
I would think so. Yeah.
So, we both got bikes. And I had a little Kawasaki 500, called it Baby Blue, because it was blue. And that was a great little bike. But when we went riding with the people from church on their Harleys, I had it wide open just to keep up with them.
Oh, I know, right?
And and so, so I graduated up to a 900 Suzuki, or Kawasaki, excuse me. Ooh, faux pas.
A little more power there.
Yeah, that was more power, yeah. And all of a sudden, my bike is 100 cc's bigger than my husband's. He's like, And so we rode around on those for a year or so. And then we went to this Harley shop, just stopped in, and I was sitting on this Heritage. And the saleswoman came up and said, I can bring the paperwork right over to here to you so you don't have to get off the bike. And I said, can I just have a test ride? Yeah. And our friend told my husband, if she comes back smiling, you're in trouble. I came back smiling. And, I did the Heritage for a couple of years, and then I fell in love with this deluxe CVO. And
those are nice bikes. Oh. I have a 2005 Fat Boy that very much looks like a Heritage. It has the passing lights on the side and everything. So yeah, it's got a same look and feel, I think. They're great bikes to ride.
Oh yeah,
they're big bikes.
That deluxe that I had was a dream.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I miss it so much.
So you got to use all of this motorcycle riding knowledge that you have in your books, which the first book is called Power Shift, which came out, was it last year that it came out?
No, it came out in April.
April? Oh,
this
gosh.
April.
Oh,
yeah.
So you're doing them kind of back to back. I got you.
Yeah, I planned it that way.
Got you. Well, what's cool is Double Clutch came out today. And then I like that you have two more books coming, and they all have that same sort of play on motorcycle riding, like the titles of them. But so interesting to me that there is such reluctance to publish this kind of book, given that you are a published author. I mean, we can let's talk about some of the books that you already have published out there with HarperCollins. I know your first book, Running Lean, which is it's a young adult, I don't want to speak for you, but I know it's a young adult novel, and it has themes of anorexia in there, which is it was in 2013 that it came out, such an interesting sort of look at teenagerness. It's not just romance, it's actual real problems that a lot of teenagers face.
Right. My young adult books are really just dealing with teen issues or just writing young adult is so much fun because they have permission to be to do dumb things and to do wild things. It doesn't feel as restrictive as adult fiction.
You can be irresponsible because kids are.
Yeah.
So you can pretend for a little while.
Yeah.
But that was a very well-received book.
Running Lean did fairly well, yeah. It wasn't as much as the publisher had hoped for because they were branching into a new market. It was a Christian publisher, Zondervan, and they were trying to branch into the general market, and they were just starting this and didn't quite know how to do it.
Got you.
So, it didn't take off the way they had hoped, but it did pretty well.
Was it challenging to find a publisher? How did you approach that? Because you were a new author at the time. How did you approach being published?
That was... I went to a lot of writers' conferences and met with editors and talked to agents and took a lot of classes and improved my craft. And it took a while, about 5 years,
wow.
I think. And then I entered my story, Running Lean, into a contest. And it didn't win, but it was nominated.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, that gave me a little bit more of an in to talk to an editor. And I talked to the editor from Zondervan, and they were saying, yes, we want stories that are sort of Christian light, is what they said.
Right, not heavy on it.
Right, that they could take into the general market where there's a broader audience. And they also were looking for male protagonists. I'm like, I'm here I am.
Yes.
And so with the nomination for this award and this completed novel, she wanted to see it. And that's how it all worked. And it's like I hit a home run my first time at bat.
So you've got a really cool history because you are also you have your degree in, it's like a communication, but drawing as well.
Communication
right?
design.
Design, right.
Yeah.
But you focused on a whole other kind of genre with your drawings and design, correct?
I do all sorts of things. I worked for some time with a couple of companies here in Georgia doing graphic arts for them. And then I went back to school is what I did.
I was going to ask you, how did you always have this story about Running Lean in the background of your life, and that's kind of the impetus for writing, or how did the story come about?
I didn't. But I was writing. I used to write fantasy.
Oh, amazing.
And then I decided when my daughter was about 11 years old and I saw her approaching an age where she was going to be dealing with not childlike issues. And so I wondered how I might be able to help her. And sorry for getting a little religious here, but the Lord had something greater in mind, not just her, but others. And it was right at that time when I was praying when I got the idea for the first book.
Amazing.
And the first book is not Running Lean. It started out with a different story. So that was part of the growth process over those 5 years. Was I had the first book and I had to figure out what was working and what wasn't working and fix things. And Running Lean kind of came out of that whole series scenario.
Interesting. I love that you had legitimacy because you had been nominated for some awards. So it's it's something I'm sure many local authors here, because you live on the outskirts of Calhoun, Georgia. It's nice that you're local, and there are a lot of local authors here who I'm sure would want to be able to have the same experiences as you to become more widely distributed. Mm-hmm. So it's great that you had that support that way. And then you learned along the way and studied a lot, it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, writers' conferences are very helpful. Very helpful. It gives you, helps you to network and make contact with other people in the industry who can help you, or, taking classes or making, professional contacts, editors and agents, that sort of thing.
Do you still go to them?
I'm going to one at the end of this month.
Oh, you were talking about that at the end of this month. Yeah. So where is it?
It's up near Asheville.
Oh, no way. Mm-hmm. What's cool too is that you're regional. Like, you used to live in Murphy, North Carolina. I was like, it's not Andrews, right? But that whole area, that's also part of where your books are set, right?
Yes, the new books. I have one novel called Finding Hero, which I have to republish because the publisher went out of business. So I'm going to be republishing that as soon as I can. It's ready to go. I just need to push the button.
Okay.
But yeah, and that was inspired by Andrews.
Amazing.
And I have a lot of character. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. The male character in that ended up being Cherokee.
Wow.
And so that's a perfect area for him to
amazing.
Come from. So.
This whole area. So if you're from this area, I'm sure it'll be really nice to be able to read a book that you can identify some local places.
Yeah. And then the new books, I just envisioned a motocross training facility in the mountains. And there's plenty of places where it could actually exist.
Maybe they will.
And even though we're not living there anymore, I love Murphy. Murphy is just a wonderful place.
Well,
and
I've ridden through there many times. Yeah, it's so lovely. Yeah. It's good writing for sure. Mm-hmm. So interestingly, you also have some other books, the Because series, correct? Mm-hmm. So you started with one sort of young adult teen novel, and it translated to 5 or 6 more, right?
I think a friend of mine called me the queen of series recently.
Are you?
Because it seems like I write one book and then another idea will come out of that book, or a character that I really want to do something with. And Noah in the Because books was one of those characters. He was the bad boy in Running Lean. I mean, he was a bad boy. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to take him. I'm going to take him out of the place where he's comfortable, put him someplace where he's never been before, with people he doesn't know, so he's not the popular kid anymore, and then make him an amateur sleuth.
Redefine him. What is it like to put that mind on, if that makes sense, that personality on as you're writing as somebody else?
It's hard to explain it. I've done it my whole life. From the time I was pretending as a kid, I used to make up scenarios of, okay, you're this person, and we did not play house. I had elaborate story ideas for what we were playing.
It's a saga, not a house.
Wow. So it was not like, I'll be the mommy and you be the daddy, and here's the doll, and none of that. None of that. I was not into dolls. I'm into dolls now, but not then. It's just imagination. And when I sit down to write, I kind of get into a zone, and one thing I like to do is like go to a restaurant or go to a park, someplace where I don't have my dogs barking at me, and I don't have dishes in the sink, and I don't have chores that need to be done or phones that are ringing. And I can just focus on nothing but me and the computer and what I'm writing. That's my favorite thing to do.
Do you have set times that you write? There are some authors I've had on the show where they've had to really make a very disciplined schedule for themselves to write.
Yeah, I'm not disciplined like that. I don't think discipline is really part of my vocabulary that much.
Whatever you're doing, it works though. So,
it's a passion more than a discipline. And so, lunchtime, obviously, when I can get out with my computer. But from there, I'll I can find a library and continue writing, or Starbucks or whatever. And if I have to write in the evening, I can do that, and I can go till 2:00 in the morning. If I'm in the zone, that's where I'm at.
Well, if you're just joining us, I'm speaking to Diana Sharples. She is an author, a published author, and has the second of a series of books that just got published today. So when you are, I've heard authors talk about characters almost writing themselves in a certain way. Is that what you've experienced?
Taking over the story.
Yes, like they have an idea of what they want the character to do, but what they wind up doing something else, which is so fascinating.
It's when you're in that zone and you're just typing away, and you're trying to get from A to B, and something happens along the way, and you think, that's kind of cool. Let's see where that takes us, because you can always edit it out if it doesn't work. So. Yeah,
it's not wasted time, right?
You're just wasted
exploring.
Time. And if nothing else, you find out something about the character that maybe you didn't know before.
It's like a real human in some way, a real person.
Definitely. And in fact, I find that that's necessary as part of the writing process, to make the characters like real people in your head. So that, I don't know, you don't force them to do something that they might not normally do. It's fun. I'm sorry, it's just fun.
It sounds like you're to be so authentic to who they are. Do they have, are the characters that you are writing, do they sort of have an archetype to them, like you were saying, the bad boy or the ingenue or something like that?
To a certain degree, yeah. And to a certain degree, I'll take bits and pieces from people I know. The book that just came out today has
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch. It has a character in there that I don't know where she came from.
Really?
Oh my gosh, she's so evil.
Oh my goodness.
She is disturbed. And as I was writing her, I just was like, where is this coming from? This isn't me.
Isn't it fascinating that you can have these different aspects of personality? I mean, even access, a masculine side of yourself to write from a masculine perspective.
Yeah, well, as I told you before, I grew up with 3 brothers. So the male's perspective is second nature to me. I have a good idea how they talk and why they do things and how they do things. And, especially with the teen fiction and Noah, teenage boys do some really crazy stuff for no other reason than, okay, we're bored, we're going to go do this, and that's so much fun to write.
Have your brothers read your books?
No, they haven't.
Oh, that's okay though.
Yeah, one of my brothers passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
At age 59, he had brain cancer.
My goodness.
And he was the one who would have read the books. And another one is just, I don't know what he likes to read, but I don't know if he's read my books or not. If he has, he hasn't mentioned it.
So I've recorded 17 audiobooks, and I don't think really anyone that I know has listened to any, which is completely fine, because some of them can be really graphic, and it's like uncomfortable, and I'm like, my kids can't listen to these. It's fine, but it's interesting how you're either into it or you're not, no matter if there's a family member or what.
Yeah.
And so your demographic typically has been the young adult, and they do have some romance to them, but they're pretty clean romance, right?
Yeah, the young adult books are very clein.
But also the motorcycle books too.
They still deal with the things that teens are dealing with, the hormonal pressures, let's call it that.
Sure.
That exists. But yeah, they're pretty clean.
But also the motorcycle books they're romance, but they're not like super graphic either, correct?
No, I couldn't write like that.
Some people can. I don't know. It's very interesting.
I know. I could probably make a lot more money if I did, but
No, you're staying true to yourself.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
So you've got 2 more books that are going to be coming out. You've got one next month and one maybe right after that.
That one, I don't even know what happens yet, so it'll be a little while. But yeah, Enduro Ridge is the next one, and it's I'm just waiting to get feedback from my beta readers. and to make the final edit, and it'll get out.
You're doing the editing, correct?
Yeah.
How is that?
I tend to be hard on myself. So, if something needs to be cut, it's going to be cut. If something isn't phrased properly, I'm going to rephrase it.
Is it tough to look at it from a third-party perspective? Or do you access a different part of your brain?
It's accessing a different part, yeah. I can't sit down and write, like, first draft one day and edit the same day. I have to put one book aside, start on the next, come back and edit, go back and edit the second one. That's how, going back and forth like that.
And you have your readers who help inform.
I have some better readers, yeah.
That's amazing that they'd be willing to give you, their opinion, which makes it more successful, I guess, in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Their opinions are very valuable to me. So even if they say something I don't agree with. It still kind of sinks in, and I go, well, maybe,
Do you sometimes change things or not change things, you mean?
Sometimes I change. I say, no, that's not right. I'm just going to keep it the way it is. And other times I'll think again and go, oh, maybe I should change that. So, yeah, it's really helpful.
So how do you market yourself? You are self-publishing these books. You obviously came to that event on Saturday. What do you do on the other days that you don't have an event to actually show up?
That's the hardest question you could have asked me.
Oh, no.
Marketing is a bear. And I'm currently going through a thing with a writers group that I belong to, a wonderful group of women writers. And we're calling it Taming the Beast. It's all about marketing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And social media marketing and Amazon ads and Facebook ads and, all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of myths surrounding that.
What are some of the myths?
Well, for one thing, publishers, they want to know what kind of platform that you have. And this is especially and actually important if you're writing nonfiction. But if you're writing fiction, your platform is your readers, but they still want to see that you have at least 10,000 followers on, Twitter or whatever. And that's not really necessary. Because fiction, a lot of it is word of mouth. And so what you really need, first off, is a good product, a well-edited product, a good cover, a good blurb, and every step that your reader would take to decide whether to buy or not buy has to be a positive experience. So that's work that goes in up front. And then I'm doing Amazon ads. I'm looking into Facebook ads. I'm looking into figuring out how I can sell something on Instagram. I've heard it can be done. But I'm still in the process of figuring all this out. And my big challenge is not so much just to have my Amazon ads start working, but reaching those people who go to those motocross events. And so I've gone to 2 already this year. I've got another one planned in September. We're actually going to Las Vegas to the finale.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
And exciting, gosh!
And I may go to some of the outdoor motocross events this summer if I can swing it, and just really talking to people there, and hopefully, this is my dream anyway. They have they do a daytime program while all the guys are out qualifying for the nighttime race called Race Day Live. And I'm hoping, they often interview like businesses and stuff like that.
Really?
I'm hoping I can sneak in there somehow. Yeah.
Did you have to learn just a tremendous amount, obviously, about motocross riding, which is different from street riding, what we do,
yes, it
or
is.
cruiser
it's
riding.
Another animal altogether.
How did you learn
There's
about
just 2 wheels. That's the only similarity.
Yeah, really.
And you got a brake and a clutch in the same place.
And romance, men and women. So
it's a totally different thing.
How did you learn about it?
I asked a lot of questions. I went to these races and I said, okay, I can't be shy. And I went and talked to these riders, and I talked to their mechanics, and I talked to whoever would give me 2 minutes of their time. And I met some people who were extremely helpful. And if I can plug someone,
Please do.
AJ Catanzaro has a business he calls Moto Academy, and he trains riders. And he was a rider. I guess this year he's retired. I don't know. But yeah, and he was awesome, and his academy is awesome, and he posts YouTube videos, and there's all kinds of information in there. And so really just for me, just watching that, getting information wherever I could find it, and really being observant during the races. So I come at it from a fan's point of view. I don't claim to be an expert at all. But it works.
Well, if you did not take that initiative, though, when you think about that, like that opened up a bunch of different doors for you. And
it did.
I just love that you didn't sort of say, I have this dream, and then you didn't do it. You actually you were brave. It takes a lot of guts to go in front of people and say, I'm writing this book. I know this isn't your deal, but like, would you mind sharing some information? I mean, how wonderful that people are generous with their time as well.
Oh, yeah. And the funny thing is that, and a friend explained this to me. I was like kind of amazed by it. And she said, well, they were so thrilled to talk to me. Oh. And I'm thinking, wow, these are really nice guys. And they are. But my friend told me, well, to them, you're the celebrity.
Oh. Interesting. An interesting dynamic altogether.
I'm just me. I didn't think of it that way, So, yeah. And so that was really great.
I'm thinking what it would have been like to approach these people and say, would you mind? It's what they love to. It's a subject they love to talk about if they're in it. So it must have been really nice to hear what they had to say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I found the same thing with cops.
Oh.
Because, it's a romantic suspense. Crimes happen. I need to know what the police are doing,
True.
So, in fact, I've got one gentleman in Murphy who's going to read all of Enduro Ridge for me because one of the characters is a cop in that. So he's going to make sure I get everything right. And every time I've gone to talk to them, you think, they're going to be really busy and they've got much more important things on their minds
to solve.
Yeah, crimes to solve and stuff. But they've just been so open and friendly.
Well, you know what? It's interesting too because I read a lot. And so if something has a ring of inauthenticity, it does take you out of the book. And it's kind of amazing how that can be. So I love that you care enough to make sure that as much whatever you are doing rings true.
I was reading a book recently that the author got something wrong on page 1.
Oh, no.
And it was something that Google could have fixed.
Oh.
And it completely took me out of the story. I'm like, what a shame.
I think one of the best things about reading is how immersed I can become in another life. Mm-hmm. And so when something kind of does take me out of it, I'm just like, oh man, I will skim the rest of it. Like I've lost something. So I don't know. I think I can be kind of critical that way just for myself because I read so much. And so, and I have since I was a kid. So that's what's kind of fun about today is to talk about not just a love of books and what it's like to be you and being an author, but riding motorcycles too. It's like a marriage of several things that make me super happy. And it's interesting too that I'm just sort of flabbergasted that there is not this belief that this kind of genre of book would be publishable or worth publishing, in a larger sense.
I mean, a while back, it was unheard of to publish vampire novels. And then Twilight came out.
Right.
Before that, there was a stint with Anne Rice, and she did great, but not a lot of other people were writing that, and especially not for kids, and it really just takes the first book breaking out to start a trend.
What was this that sort of what was the impetus for this motocross theme for you?
Well, okay, I was researching the other books, not Running Lean, but Running Strong, which is the sequel. And the kids were riding motocross bikes. And I was like, okay, I need to get some of this on me. As a friend of mine says, you got to get some on you. And so
I know just what you mean by that. That's crazy.
I found a motocross training facility in that part of North Carolina where the books take place. And I went, well, my characters could come here. So I went there on a weekend. They let me stay for free in one of their cabins. This was the Jimmy Weinert training facility in Maysville, North Carolina. Awesome people. And, they let me stay for free. And I just got some of it on me. I woke up hearing the bikes going by, and I smelled the two-stroke fuel and got the dust on me. And I realized while I was there that there's a lot more to this than I thought, And that was kind of the start. And I met a friend there, a new friend, and it just got me started. And then I started watching Supercross. And Ryan Dungey was winning everything. And so I just got drawn into it. And that's where every Saturday, tell me I got to do something on Saturday, I got to check. When are they racing? So, I just became a super fan,
I can imagine it's like putting on new clothes or something. Do you know what I mean? Like you start to become almost the character itself in that world. And then do the characters just kind of unfold for you?
They do. Now, Power Shift, there's an interesting story behind that. My daughter was in college, and she was taking a class where they were reading the Greek tragedy Antigone. And she had to write a paper. And she's like, I don't even know what to write about. And my daughter's not a writer. So
she's a dancer, professional dancer.
She's a professional dancer. Uh-huh. And so, obviously I couldn't write the paper for her, but I sat down and I read the play. And as I was reading it, I got excited. I
went,
there's a cool story here. There's some stuff going on here, some human psychology stuff that's really interesting. And I wonder if I could put this in a modern setting. Now, Antigone, people die. It's a tragedy. Everyone dies. But there are two brothers, and they battle to the death. Well, I can't have that in a modern setting, But what if one of them is accused of killing the other? And it sort of evolved from there, and I tied it in with motocross, and it all came to life.
Almost like a perfect, mix of alchemy, I guess, of things.
Yeah.
What do you think people don't really know about authors? What do you think people don't appreciate enough about what it's like to be you?
How hard it is, and how much time it takes, and how much devotion it takes, especially to do it well. So many people say, I've got a great idea for a book. Okay. What are you going to do? Sitting down and actually doing the work is very hard. Even if you're just starting out and you're writing your sloppy copy, and it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, you're just getting it out there. It's still hard. It takes a level of focus and dedication that not everybody can do. And that's one of the things. And when people go out and they buy books cheap, 99 cents for an ebook or something, I'm not sure they always realize what is behind that book, the amount of work that went into it. And I don't know. I think that's what kind of,
it's like a sadness too, because it's like, so when I have an audiobook that I listen to, I feel like because when I read, I speed read an actual physical book. My brain is just going way too fast sometimes. And so an audiobook slows me down and forces me to experience the book the exact way the author had intended. And I actually have a different appreciation for an audiobook that way than when I have a physical book that I'm like, I don't need to hear the description of this, or something, because I get impatient. So it's very interesting to me. And it's a whole appreciation for a book that I actually value tremendously, because if it's up to me, I just want to know more and more, so I go through faster. But when I've actually listened to an audiobook, I feel like I have that sense of, wow, that they really cared enough to describe and to set up the background so that it's a real full understanding of a character, as opposed to my saying, okay, she's a woman, she's a cop, whatever. I don't appreciate, I have to make myself slow down, but that's just my brain is fast. So yeah, I think that's interesting that I don't know that when I have a physical book in front of me that I actually take the time to really appreciate every little aspect of it. But your having pointed that out to me makes me want to. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, that's an interesting perspective on the audiobook too that I hadn't heard before. I hear audiobooks are becoming more and more popular.
Oh yeah.
And people are using them while they're driving or while they're doing housework or, whatever. And, so, that's great.
I know it's actually something I appreciate, and audiobooks have actually listening to them was what got me started in the voiceover world anyway, because I thought these characters, I'm listening to these people read, and I'm like, I wonder if I could do that. In my head when I read, I imagine my own voice, so that's what got me started in that world. And so if it weren't for audiobooks, I don't think that I'd be even sitting here right now talking to you. Yeah, it's definitely something that I have an appreciation for. And for sure, I know it's become a bigger and bigger part of the market. And I do actually clean and listen to books as well. I'm lost. I would get excited to get in my car to drive home from wherever I was, because I couldn't wait to hear the next part. Yeah. It made driving like a happier experience for me when I used to drive every day downtown. So for sure. But stories like this, I think what's kind of cool about it is, again, like having it set here in a local area that I could actually even imagine, and knowing it's got some motorcycles to it, and also knowing you and kind of what makes you feel
thank you,
like satisfied with what you're doing. I don't know, I'm excited to read them, because I feel like I can imagine being you for just a little bit and imagine what it's like to play around in your brain, And also, I like learning something new. So for me to understand what it's like in the motocross world, that's really cool. You've done that work. So I get to appreciate that side as well.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, great.
So you've got one book, another book that came out today, and then you've got another book, and then one more, right?
Yeah. Enduro Ridge will be out next month. And Brake Check will be out someday. Well, probably, hopefully before the end of the year.
Was there anything that you think would be really important for an author who's getting started in this industry that you would like to share with them before we wrap up?
Keep going. Yeah. I've known so many people, especially young people, who think, I'm going to write a book, and they think it's going to be fun and great and all that. And then they get to the part in the middle that's sagging, and they're not as, excited by the story and they quit. And they drop it and they start something else, or they drop it altogether. So the first advice is keep going. Finish it. Even if it doesn't go anywhere, you've got that accomplishment, because so many people will start a story or start writing a book and never finish. So that's the first advice, is just finish it.
Just finish it, even if you don't love it.
Even if you don't love it, yeah. Get it done, and then you've got that under your belt, and that's an accomplishment. It really is. And the second advice is, like I said earlier, attend writers' conferences. If you're serious about this, be serious about it. Don't treat it as a hobby. That's my biggest advice, is don't treat it as a hobby. Treat it as a job, even if you're only doing it for an hour a day. Make it important.
Like I was saying, it's so easy for anything to come into my life that seems to be more important than some of the things that I do on the side, as well as, voiceover auditions for sure, but also even riding my bike. I can find 1,000 things to do that could take that place, but right. I guess you do make time for what you really think is important. Right. That's really great advice, to look at it as a job and not just hobby.
And it's really hard, because so many people seem to think any sort of creative endeavor is a hobby. I'm also an artist. And, I've had conversations with people, oh, I don't want to buy that piece of artwork. I've got to make my car payment this month. And I'm like, so do I. And, hey, that painting took me 40 hours. And I spent so much money on my education. And, my husband is a musician. And that's how we met. We were in a band together. I used to play the drums. I do not anymore, but I used to play the drums.
Female drummer. I love it.
And, there was this thing about growing up with three brothers.
Yeah, I guess so. It did well for you,
Rubbed off a little bit. And so he's and his father was a musician too. And it was like, people don't want to pay you because they think, well, you're just having fun, right? It's just a hobby, right? You
could be sitting on a front porch playing or whatever. It doesn't matter. I shouldn't have to pay you. Oh, interesting.
And, all the hours that my husband he's been playing, I don't know, since he was 12 or something. Wow. And he's still putting in at least an hour a day, just practicing.
What does he play?
Bass guitar.
So what was the kind of music that you did?
Oh, we did rock and roll.
You had to with the motorcycle. I don't know. I just picture it. That's amazing.
Yeah. I was in a wedding bar band up in Illinois, and then I moved down to Georgia because it's nice down here.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
And then I met him, and we were in a band together, and it just kind of blossomed out of that.
It's so romantic.
Yeah, it was romantic.
But people didn't appreciate sort of like the effort. I guess that's another side of being a creative that I think people need to have an understanding of, is that this is not just hobby, not just, in my spare time, but if it's something you have passion for, it's a reflection of your soul, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you've got schools cutting arts programs out of their agenda and parents who are telling their kids who do art or writing or music or whatever, no, you need to go to college and study something that's going to pay the bills. And that's all very logical and, thoughtful and caring advice. But I spent years working as a secretary because my dad, who I loved dearly, told me, no, I know you want to be an artist, but you've got to learn something that'll pay the bills. So I spent all that time working as a secretary and hating it.
Oh.
Hating it. And I just kind of lived for lunchtime when I could take a pen and paper and scribble out a couple of pages.
This hurts my heart to hear.
Or, go home and sit at my drawing table for an hour. And, so I got to a point in my life, I said, no, this isn't working. I need to do something else. And someone gave me an opportunity with a publishing company to do their graphics, So I'm just doing typesetting or whatever, but it was so much better.
You were
just
happier.
to create something.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's out there in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you get to do it in a different way. You still get to create things that are out there in the world.
Yeah. And my husband, God bless him, he has allowed me to do this. He's a musician, but he's not an artist, but he has an appreciation for anything like that. So with me and with my daughter and her desire to dance, we let her choose. We didn't force her. We let her choose. As long as she loved it, she could do it. And we sent her to college. And college is a lot more expensive now.
Yeah, it is.
We sent her to college and watched her go on tour, and now she's living her best life. And she doesn't make a lot of money, but she is happy.
Well, there's something to be said about, you can't buy happiness that way. Do you know what I mean? If you're like being a secretary, you could have all the money in the world, but, the joy of life isn't there for you. It's a different price to pay,
Yeah, and it's also, for a creative person, it's also being told, okay, you do this, in this way, and this is your boss, and this is how you speak to these people, and this is how you have to dress, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And
corporate.
Yeah. And so it's like a sense of being restricted, and creative people just want to be free.
And you are free. I look at the fact that you get to just play, in your mind, and how fun that must be.
It is fun. It's also hard. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. It's hard,
But it's worth it hard.
It's worth it hard. Yeah.
I have just so enjoyed having you on the show today, Diana.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
My website is dianasharples.com, and there's a contact form on there.
I saw you on Facebook, too.
Look me up Facebook.
Amazon.
Facebook has my middle initial, Diana L. Sharples. Yeah.
Hopefully, if there's anything I can do to help you along the way, I'm just such a champion for people following their dreams. And I think it's so inspiring to hear this.
Just being able to put this information out there about the 2 new books, Power Shift, Double Clutch.
I love the names.
Enduro Ridge.
Yeah.
That's people hearing about the books. That's what's important. That's marketing.
Heck yeah. Well, I'm honored to be part of it, and
Thank
I feel
you
it was
so much
serendipity that I got to meet you this past weekend and hear about what you're doing. And I hope that this gives you just this experience of being able to put these books out and seeing where they go. That this gives everyone a belief in a different kind of genre of book that is marketable. And who knows where it'll land? I mean, like you said, one new kind of genre can open up a whole other world, but someone has to be the first. So I hope it's you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you all for listening to Fearless Formula on Business Radio X. And again, this is Sharon Klein reminding you, with knowledge and understanding, we can have our own fearless formula. Have a great day.